Steve, can you hear me? Hey.
I can hear you. Hey, Kenna. All right.
Wow.
We got the East Coast and the West Coast going on here.
Coast to coast. I had to play some Queen to start us off, man.
All right. I see we got a bunch of people, 66 people in the room already.
Beautiful.
Don
Beautiful.
is here. Jean is here. Mike. Gary from England. All right. Thank you,
Gary,
for
all the
staying
way
up.
from England. Holy
Wow.
cow, really coast to coast.
It's gonna be a someday.
Hey, I got to play this song out. This is 1 to 10. Someday. Guys, check the lyrics of this song out if you're trying to win a championship. We're going to get started in just a minute, guys. Thanks for joining us. Just enjoy a little pre-show music.
Hey, I see Wes from St. Augustine. That's where I am. I'm at my beach condo here in St. Augustine. So Wes looks like right
Only
down the road.
beach condos for you, my friend.
And of course, I was just out in Vegas. Kenna and I were hanging out in Vegas just a few days ago, and coming home, it's always a little tough to readjust to real life leaving Vegas. So I had to go out to my condo for a few days here to chill out and unwind. Kathy is playing a tournament as she listens to the webinar here. All right. Good luck, Kathy. Kevin in Pebble Beach. All right.
Heather's on the line?
I think Heather and Paul should be on here. Yeah. Kathy.
Steve, you're a little low. Can you raise your volume up?
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can boost up my mic volume. What does everyone think? If you can chat in the window there, is my microphone loud enough? Should I crank up the volume a little bit? Can you hear Kenna all right? Oh, okay. They're saying they can hear me okay. How about Kenna? Can you hear Kenna all right?
Woo,
okay. All right. Everyone's saying volume is good. Good, good, good. All right. So, yeah, so we're, okay, we got 70-some people in the room now. We'll give people maybe 2 more minutes to get online here, and then we'll get started. Kenna, you playing any events today? Did you, I know what were you, what event was today, and did you play today, or? All right. Can you hear me, Kenna?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you were low. Oh, maybe my volume was low. How you doing, my friend? I just was excited to share that song with our people out there. It's called "Someday" from the band 1 to 10, and I just love that song. It's a
great song. My kids were listening to it earlier today, and so they're a fan of it now too.
Awesome. Well, actually, a little nepotism going on. That's my son's band, actually.
Yeah.
And they played that song on NBC Sports for the golf. It fits so many things, people vying for championships. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to them.
Hey, great.
So, awesome.
So you are at the Rio at the moment, correct?
Yes, home of the World Series of Poker Championship.
Yeah.
The main event starts this week. It's great to be here. I've lived here for the last 20 years. What a city it is.
Yeah. I'm out there, well, as you know, several times a year, but I do live in Florida. I live in North Florida, and like I said, I'm at the beach right now in St. Augustine. Kenna and I just met up in Vegas, though, last weekend. We had our annual Advanced Poker Training meet and greet. I know some of you that are in the webinar tonight were there at the meet and greet. The venue was perfect. We had it at Tommy Rockers, which is kind of right across the street from the Rio. I think we'll keep having the meet and greet there every summer from now on. The venue was just perfect, and everybody had a great time. So, so Kenna, whenever you're ready to, I know you have some stuff prepared. I know people are going to have a lot of questions for you. I promised everyone you were going to make a special offer for them on your new course that you've just finished up.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to, why don't we go ahead and start? Yeah.
Okay. A year in the making, that puppy. So I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, as we get started, rather, a quick shout out to our good friend and APTer Bobby Wages. Also, a student of mine was out here playing the championship events, contracted walking pneumonia, and is really fighting a really tough battle now. And my heart goes out to him, so I want to dedicate this webinar to him and his full recovery. So,
sorry to hear that. Yeah, I
yeah,
know him as well.
Great guy, and many. Got to meet a lot of the great APTers and fantastic group. So, thank you for joining me tonight, everyone. Let me tell you what we're going to do. Steve's asked me to share about 30 minutes, maybe 45. I tend to be long-winded at certain times about some advice for you players out there on techniques and strategies to winning championships. So I'm going to present something that I put together for you. And then, as Steve said, I would like to make a very special offer to you on a course I've been developing over the last year. And then I'm going to take all your questions and answer as many of them as I can. I'm here as a coach and a trainer to help you better your game. And I have respect for you for being here. So thank you for joining us.
Great. And real quick, Kenna, let me just say, I'm going to turn off my webcam and my microphone while you're talking here, but I am going to be monitoring the chat window. So any questions anyone has, just type them in the chat window there. I'll be keeping track of all of them, and then after Kenna is finished with his presentation, we'll go into the Q&A part, and I'll come back on, and I will pose all the questions to Kenna that were asked over the course of this presentation here. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kenna, and maybe, I don't know if you feel like starting by telling them about, you were just a couple weeks ago now, you had a nice 9th place finish in the shootout event, defeating 2 full tables, I believe, and then final tabling it in a really tough final table with Carrie Katz was there and a couple other big poker pros from Vegas. And if you may want to tell everyone about your experience there in the shootout event.
Yeah, well, it was absolutely fantastic. I'll speak a little bit about that in a minute. Right now, can you see? Steve, are you guys able to see the start of my PowerPoint presentation that I put together?
We're not yet. Go ahead and why don't you do what we did before there with?
Okay.
Can you start it?
Start it again. Okay.
Yes. Start it with just the PowerPoint window, and then we'll see if. Okay, there we go. Perfect.
How about now? Okay.
We see it full screen, and yep, we're
perfect.
We're
so
ready.
I may toggle back and forth. We may even get into some of the bonus material for the advanced strategies and techniques from the program itself. But like I said, Steve asked me to put this together on winning championships. And I just want to offer you guys some advice and techniques to winning poker championships. And we're going to create a special journey tonight, you and I, together. And a journey of discovery, because that's what learning is all about, right? We look at things from a fresh perspective or see and get new understanding or new awareness of something. That's what learning is all about. So I'm going to talk about some subjects here. First one is, of course, winning. And what does winning mean to you? Does it mean having the opportunity to play the game? Is it about money? Is it about proving yourself that you can win? Is it about beating or defeating others to prove your own superiority over them? Or is it simply about beating the game? Interesting, throughout my career, it meant all of these things to me at different times. And one of the things that I realized really through the help of my good friend and mentor, long time, Fast Eddie Felsen, I call him Eddie, but they made the movie The Color of Money and The Hustler around him, and I've been fortunate enough to have him as a mentor for over 10 years. So much of my material and a lot of things that I've learned through my career, I attribute to him. And especially my ideas about winning, that it is subjective depending on who you're talking to. Each person is different. I remember playing the main event last year, and you can see, here's Eddie's quote right here. Winning is feeling good about how you're doing in the game based on what you want to achieve. And I love that, because now it's not about defeating somebody else or, money, which is definitely a result of winning a championship, but it's more about feeling good about how you're doing based on what you want to achieve. And so one of the first pieces of advice that I would like to share with you in starting your journey is actually quotes that I learned from other people along the way. And I remember playing in the WPT, one of the first ones, or actually this was 2005. It was at the Bicycle Club Casino, and they did an interview and they were asking me about the game. And at that time I said, poker is a game of me against myself. And so that was the first quote that I realized that, and what I mean by that is I was in a battle to win a championship, and to do that I had to overcome personal obstacles, whether that was my lack of patience or self-discipline, hand selection, or gaining the skills I needed to win. I saw those as my obstacles or barriers to winning a championship, rather than everybody else or even the game itself. Another early quote I learned early on was from Mike Caro, who was a neighbor for me, a fellow APTer, the mad genius of poker, who said, "Tournament poker is a people game." I love that quote. It's a people game played with cards. And so I had to learn more about people. I think all the players that you're playing with are people, right? We're not in that dog photo where you're playing with dogs and cats. And that's when I actually started my studies with Fast Eddie, and my career really took off. Another one is from TJ Cloutier. One of the things I did early on was surround myself with great players, and I just waited for things like this to dribble out of their mouth, who said, sometimes jacks are gold and other times they're a piece of toilet paper. Kenna, you're going to have to know that your job is to know the difference. And that gave me distance between me and my cards, and understanding that a hand only has value based on the situation you're in. And the changing of those values, your ability to adapt to those changes, really makes a huge difference in your results. I see a lot of players, they'll get two kings and an ace will flop, and they'll hold on to them for dear life, not wanting to let go of them like a dog hanging on to a bone. You want to, and same thing with their chips. They'll say the chips are their children, and they'll protect them, and they almost got glue on them. And I disagree with that strategy. I think the chips are the tools of the game, and a tool is meant to be used to be going in the flow of the game back and forth. So not getting overly attached to your chips or your cards or a result is key, so that as the changing conditions come, whether it's a flop or a turn or a river, it's almost a brand new hand. And if you can have that kind of perspective and change with the value, you'll realize, hey, a premium hand pre-flop sometimes is a piece of toilet paper post-flop. So these are some of the lessons I've learned from the quotes that I've been lucky enough to been given. Here's one. Actually, when I was acting, I was an actor before I was a poker player, studying at the Beverly Hills Playhouse with the great late Milton Katselas. And I just remember this, and how ironically, I don't know ironically, but it applies to poker. And he said, do the opposite of what you think you should be doing, and you'll be closer to the truth. And this gave me understanding that we live in a universe and we play a game of poker of dichotomies, right? You see it at the poker table all the time. The guy raises and he gets 5 callers. So he tries to raise more and more people come after him. Then he just limps in and everybody folds. It's a real kind of a strange thing until you realize that dichotomies appearing opposites it is a lot in the game. And so from that, I developed the strategy of keep my opponents guessing and then get them to guess wrong. And another technique I'll share with you is try to figure out not just your own hand, but figure out what your opponent wants you to do and do the opposite. And that makes you a very tough opponent and unpredictable, which equals danger. And then this one actually was, I remember when I went in to see Eddie for the first time, he had a plaque behind his desk that said, "Success is a journey, not a destination." So important. This is an old wise saying to let us know that don't focus too much on the result. Once you get the result, it's over. So it's all about the journey. And in poker, that means our technique, our process, how we execute. So these are some of the quotes I picked out, and I picked them for a specific reason. One, because the first one came from me. The second one is that it's a people game, but it's not just a people game. The third one is about cards. It's people playing cards, trying to defeat them with the cards they're dealt. And that it's a game of, the game itself is a game of dichotomies, and that we have to keep in mind that it's a journey that we're all traveling. So here now, as we start, we want to get clear on your purpose. If you want to win a championship, which is what this webinar is all about, winning championships, you need to put that as your purpose first. You know, if you put money first, or, you know, playing well, or whatever, I'm sure that Phil Hellmuth, you know, got his bracelets because he started with a very clear purpose of wanting to win bracelets, and all journeys start with a worthwhile purpose. So if you want to win championships, you have to put that as your purpose. And a championship is not just the WSOP championship. It could be anything that you're investing in that is worthwhile. And in poker, that might be an HPT championship. You know, guys might know I commentate for the HPT. I'd love to see you out there. Or a WSOP circuit. Anything. Remember, a championship is just a competition in which you overcome all the obstacles and the people to rise to the top. So make that your purpose if you want to win championships. The next thing you need is going to have to be mentally tough. And, you know, being mentally tough, you have to be able to manage your thoughts, because in the mind are mostly thoughts, right? And sometimes these thoughts creep in, thoughts of loss, of doubt. Doubt is a killer, man. You can't win a championship in doubt. You have to play from certainty. And the secret is that comes from you. Knowingness is an attitude of decision. I'm certain. And then you take the action, and it starts from the mind, though. So doubt is a killer, as is confusion, which you're not sure what to do or you're confused. These things are the lead to failing and falling short. And since the mind can be managed, it is a skill that you can learn with your coach. Hopefully you have a coach, or you have someone that you can work with to develop mental strength. As I said, so we want to be clear in our thought, clear in our purpose. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to have to be technically great. And this is what I loved about aligning with APT and everyone over there, Steve, is just this great software in which we can work on and build our technique and make it great. And if I could be so bold, I'll say my program, my course, Championship Poker, how to go from a chump to a champ series, this is meant to design to help you know what to do, how to train, how to become technically great at the game. You can't be a technician that's sloppy and expect to win championships. And of course, as I said, you're going to have to, the game is people. So you're going to have to learn about the people in the game. And so what I thought when Steve asked me to do this, I thought of a bunch of questions, and maybe you guys will have a bunch of questions I'll be happy to answer for you after this presentation. But I think of some of the questions that many players who come in for coaching with me ask me about. And here's some of their questions dealing with playing the player or the psychology of poker. How do I defeat the overly aggressive player? Good question. How do I beat bad players? And this is funny because they always say, I can't beat bad players. I'd rather play with Phil Hellmuth and all the great players because I can't beat a bad player. How do you do that? How do you defeat calling stations? I keep betting and betting. They keep calling me down all the time. Are these questions that you guys have from time to time? I'm going to be answering these for you here in just a few minutes. Ironically, the most important question I don't think is ever asked, which is, how do I defeat myself? When we fall short, many times it's because we've defeated ourselves, which is a self-defeatist. It's almost as if people from time to time find a way to lose, but yet nobody comes in with this question. Kenna, can you tell me, how do I defeat myself? And this goes from very obvious things, whether it's drugs or alcohol or the pit, or surrounding yourself with players or people who don't have the best intentions. And I'm not making any judgment there. I've tried all of them. I found many ways to defeat myself before I learned the lessons on how not to. One of the ways we defeat ourselves is by taking the game personally and making other people our target. We single them out. Like, how do I beat this overly aggressive player? You're already emotional. So whenever this is a great Eddie quote, whenever you make your opponent more important than you end up defeating yourself. So rather than make it personal, just change the question, how to defeat overly aggressive play. And here's my 5 bullet points for you, is many times I find when people go broke in the spot, they're playing marginal hands post-flop and they're out of position. So don't put yourself in that position to begin with, or you'll end up defeating yourself. Another way to do it is you slow them down by under-repping really good made hands, because they're oftentimes betting the hand for you. And an easy way to defeat an overly aggressive player is allow them to defeat themselves. We call, obviously, when we're in position, we're going to call more liberally with marginal hands, like second pair, top pair, weak kicker, because they're betting such a wider range. So we can't be afraid to know the value of our hand based on the player type and make those calls. Don't bet hands that can't withstand check raises and call downs, especially if you're against really overly aggressive opponents. And if I can go back there, don't bluff and become overly aggressive yourself. A lot of times people pick up the energy of the player that they're playing against, and they become the very thing that they're resisting. So don't do that, or you're the one that's going to end up defeating yourself. How do we compete with bad players? Well, here's my pull-up points on this. Again, the same thing with the overly aggressive. If we resist or sympathize with the bad player, we'll tend to become one. Whenever I hear a bad beat story and, ends up the person gets all their chips in, they don't even have a pair, or they have less than top pair, I almost want to say, well, who's the one that's playing bad? They'll use an excuse and they'll see somebody play bad to give them, and now they're going to start picking up and playing bad hands, and they really pick up that persona themselves. You got to keep your distance. And realize, obviously, everybody always says this, but, they're the ones that are funding the game. So you should be thanking them, not blaming them. Don't bluff them or try to push them out of hands. Just play it straightforward. They're not thinking about what you have or, that your elaborate bluff is going to work. Just bet when you have it, check when you don't. And when you're drawing, take the free cards when they're given. One of the aspects of a bad player is not only they call when they should fold, but they check when they should bet. So that's our advantage there. And, of course, beware of FPS, fancy play syndrome, and trying to outthink and outmaneuver just doesn't work. So those are the bullet points on that. And how to play versus calling stations. Just 3 bullet points, very similar. A lot of players think that calling stations, bad players are very similar. So again, just don't bet marginal hands. But here we want to overbet our value hands because they pay off. So when you go up to the ATM, you might as well get it out, and then don't bluff. There's 2 more questions I want to handle before I get into taking your questions and talking with you, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm, like Steve said, I'm not a technology genius, so navigating this is not always the easiest. But I want to handle these 2 questions that I get all the time. What do you do when you're card dead? Great question. First is realize that you're the one not in motion, not the cards. The cards were never in motion. They were never alive. It's actually you that are stuck. And it's a call to action. Don't rely on the deck or the cards to save you, because they won't. How many times have you seen a guy waits for 2 hours and he finally picks up 2 kings and he loses to 7-4 suited? It happens all the time. And the game's not going to let you out, because in one way it's trying to teach you that you must rely on yourself, your creativity, your determination to see you through to a championship. And in that way, we need to learn to play more situationally by observing and reacting to other positional factors. And I have that in my bonus material on my course. I think what I'll do is I'll try and play it for you, those situational factors, after I get done with this, because juggling it, I think, would be more than my skill level at this particular thing. So important. That is that information alone in the course is worth it, just to know the situational factors and how to utilize those when you become card dead, so to speak. Let's look at an example, though. Let's say I'm under the gun, and this just happened the other day when I was playing a tournament. I'm dealt 8-5 suited. I raised to leverage my tight image and poor table position because I'm under the gun, right? So most people give you credit for having a much bigger hand. I flop nothing, however, and I'm heads up. I go for a check raise to represent a big pair rather than lead out, and they tend to think that you have ace-king or ace-queen. So doing the check raise legitimizes my strength of my hand in my opponent's mind. They don't know that I'm running without the ball. I think that's a quote from Mike Sexton. Never fun to do, but sometimes necessary. And then I triple-barreled bluff, potting it in on H Street to shake off the Klingon. off my ankles and win the pot. And that one got through. And then what do you know? The very next hand, I find 2 queens. When I'm card dead, notice in this example, it's my creativity and determination that got me into the motion. It's not the cards. So when you're in that spot, think of this, that the cards are calling me to action. Now, obviously, this depends on blind levels and where you're at in a tournament and a lot of other factors, again, that I cover in the course. And this is the tip, if you haven't heard it before, is learn to play spots, not cards. Spots meaning those other factors. You know, a lot of times we just think of position as table position, but there's actually 5 positions that I consider as I'm playing a hand. Like I said, I'll try and go over those with you if we have time. There's a few of them: your opponent, your position, your superior chip position. And then when you see leverage points, it doesn't do you any good if you have an advantage if you don't use that advantage. Just like material that I'm going to share with you in my course, it's gold only if it's applied. If you don't apply it, knowledge is useless. They say knowledge is power. I disagree. I think it's the application of knowledge that's potential power. This was just an example. You notice an opponent tends to fold to big bets. They're playing scared. They don't want to lose a lot of chips. So a situation comes up where they raise, they get a couple of callers. This is a perfect time to run a squeeze play. You're on the button and you make a pot-sized squeeze play with 9-4 off because you're playing the other factors of the situation. Everyone folds and you win the pot. And don't be surprised if a hand or two after that you start finding some premium hands that come at you. Here is, Steve just sent me this actually. This is the box art for our championship poker series. Really proud of this, and Steve's going to ask me some questions. I'll talk more about it, what's in it, and the value you get. And right now I'm going to come out of this, if I can, and come back to Steve if his webcam is on. Steve, are you there?
I am here. Let me turn my webcam back on here. Okay. All right. Yeah. Do you have the box art there? I never saw the box art.
Oh, yeah, I did. I had it up. I guess I should leave that on. Let me see if I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're proud of that. I don't blame you. You did a good job on that.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm gonna put a link here to it up in the chat window here. I'm gonna put a link to Kenna's new course so everyone can check it out. And
let me just see if I can get it. This is about the maximum of my capabilities, Steve.
All right, I have confidence in you.
Well, thanks.
All right.
So is that come up now?
Oh, it was there for a second, then it disappeared.
Boy, you're really putting me.
Do it again. You had it for a second there. Try to put it back up again.
Okay. I will try.
Tell you what, while you're trying to get that box back up, let me start telling people about it. I personally asked Kenna to do this course. There you go. Yep. All right. You can leave it just like that. Oh, it disappeared again.
Sorry, bud.
Okay.
Did you see it now?
Yeah, you had it for a second, but then it just kind of disappeared. Maybe you went full screen or something.
Yeah, I probably did.
Okay. Well, I tell you what. Let's see here. If I could, I might be able to pull it up. Okay, we don't need the box. Let me just I'll tell them all about it here.
Okay.
We'll try one more time. Okay, there it is. If that'll stay up, then we're in good shape.
All right.
Okay. So I asked Kenna to make this course. This is not something Kenna would normally do. Kenna is a private coach, and he generally reserves his secrets for his private students. And Kenna coaches at $200 an hour. So I asked him to put together this course for APT members. He's never done anything like this in his career before. So I wanted to point that out right away, that this is something really special. There's a lot of poker personalities out there that put out, lots of different courses and have lots of different material, but this is really Kenna's one and only course right now. We're selling it exclusively on APT, and I'm really appreciative to him for letting us do that. Kenna has been making his living as a poker professional for over 20 years now, and not a lot of people can say that. He is a professional poker player. I mean, not even I can say that. I mean, I am a poker coach, and I am a professional in the poker world per se, because I run a poker site, and I teach computers how to play poker. But Kenna has actually been a professional poker player for over 20 years, and I think that's something to me that is really impressive about him. There's lots of people that, as you know, in the poker playing world, that have a good year or two and they're on top of the world, and you hear about them a lot, you see them on TV, and then poof, they're gone and you never hear about them again. Kenna is not one of those people. And in a game like poker that has evolved so much over the last 20 years, the fact that Kenna is still at the top of his game, just final tabling at WSOP Bracelet event a couple weeks ago, I really think that says something about the depth of his skills and his playing experience. So I think you're going to love this course. This course, I've watched the whole course. I've reviewed it with him. It is not a GTO course. It's not one of those. It's
not. If you're looking for Godzilla, I mean Flopzilla. Although I do train on how to use the grid matrix. This isn't for you.
Yeah, so he'll go into some of that a little bit, but he's not going to be pulling out the solvers and that kind of thing. He's not going to be going into some complicated river situation and the GTO optimal play in that case, with in a situation that'll only come up like once a year or maybe only once in your entire poker career. In this course, Kenna really looks at practical skills you need to go from a beginner to a champion, and he really covers everything right from the very beginning. He talks even about things like the way you hold your cards and your demeanor at the table, and then going on in the course into more advanced concepts. And he will go into some specific hands. How do you play pocket nines pre-flop against a 3-bet? And, what is your equity against a typical 3-better's range? And what are you going to do in some of these tricky situations that come up over and over again, not the situations that come up once a year and the solver line that is slightly better than the non-GTO line. So, and especially the thing I like the most about this course is he talks a lot about that mental toughness and positive attitude, and how much that affects, who are the winners and the losers in this game. And if you're going to make it this long in the poker world, you almost have to have a positive attitude. Now, I say that, and there's a couple poker pros out there, I won't mention any names, that somehow they've been around for a long time and they don't have a very positive attitude, and they must be either the greatest or the luckiest poker players on earth. But believe me, your attitude affects everything in your poker game and in life as well. Really, a positive attitude is going to take you far in poker and in life. And Kenna really he talks a lot about that in this course. So I'm super impressed with the course. I think you're going to love it, and we are going to be selling it starting in just a couple days on Advanced Poker Training for $399, and that is going to be the price for it. So we are offering it just in this webinar here at half price, and I don't know if we ever will offer it at the $199.
Maybe at Christmas. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe at Christmas or something, but it's not going to be a normal thing. This is not one of those deals where, that we claim we're giving a discount. This is really a $399 course, and we're offering it for $199, which is, again, Kenna coaches at $200 an hour. So for the price of a 1-hour private lesson with Kenna, you're going to get the course here.
Can I do something, Steve, on that? Just to inspire people to, because this is just not about getting a course. It's about also investing in yourself, and I want to lead by example, and I'll invest in you too. And I don't know if you've got a link or for people to buy this or what. And I want to be fair, but if somebody purchases this course, but they have to be in the webinar, not
right now.
So once the webinar is over, it's over. I will give a half-hour private to the first 10 individuals that buy the course that show the desire to want to improve and become a champion. I will personally give a half-hour private one-on-one to the first 10 people that order this course.
Okay, so you heard it here. So Kenna is going to, if you use that link right up at the top of your chat window on the right side of your screen, you should see the link there. You're going to get the course half price for $199. You're going to get, if you buy it right now in the webinar, you're going to get a half-hour personal private lesson with Kenna. And in addition to, that's right, yeah, Ken just asked, in addition to the 50% discount. Yeah, so you're going to get the course for $199, which is already a 50% discount. And Kenna is going to throw in a 1/2 hour one-on-one private lesson with you. And one thing I'll throw in addition to that as well, is, Kenna uses the advanced poker training software a lot in this course. I know that most of you are already members of APT, but if for some reason you buy this course and you're not already a member of APT, I'm going to throw in a trial membership for you as well. Because I want you to, if you're going to use the course here, you got to be able to get to all the features of the software. Great. So again, I think almost all of you watching are probably already full members of APT, but if you're not, just send me a message. You can fill out the contact form on APT and say, hey, Steve, I bought the course during the webinar, and I'll set you up with a trial membership so you can get to all the features that Kenna uses in his course, because he uses APT extensively in the course.
Yeah.
Chris in the chat window is asking if we want to throw in a brand new car too. I don't know. What do you think, Kenna?
That's like, you get a car. You get a car.
That's right. Yeah. This is not Oprah. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to taking everybody's questions. If you want to ask some questions, whether it's on the course or what I just talked about, be glad to field your questions. Also, I'm going to stop. Can I stop sharing this now?
Yeah, do that.
And then while you're doing the questions, I will just talk a little bit about what's in the course in between the questions. How about that?
That's great, because I didn't go over that. The fact that, well, let me just say first, the course has over 4 hours of video. It's got 11 documents, PDF files from Kenna's personal coaching collection that are kind of like supplementary documents that go along with over 4 hours of videos. So, but go ahead, tell them.
4 hours of videos. When I started to put this together, one of my challenges, like I said, I've been trying to develop this now, or I have developed over the last year. One of my challenges was I wasn't sure which audience to direct it for. Was it for beginners or intermediate or advanced players? And I just decided kind of not to leave any player behind, and so I call it beginner to winner, because I wanted to hit something for everyone. And I know that's not always really popular, because maybe somebody will watch part of the course and say, well, I already understand this. I promise you, even if you know how to handle your chips, your cards, your body, and you know all the software, and even if you have good solid standards and technique, then you get into championship decision making, and I go over step by step the process of making a decision, how to make better plus EV decisions. So there's something for everyone in this course, along with, I think I put 8 or 11 different templates, like 21 principles of poker, 21 principles of the game, how to train. A lot of times players ask me, well, what should I be doing? So I give a template of just like a gym exercise, right? How to train and what you should be doing for that. how to tell whether you're a chump or a champ. There's a checklist that you can go down. Okay, yep, this is me. Yep, this is me. Nope, this is me. And you can see your status and where you're at. A lot of people want to know, where am I at, coach? Well, this is a brutal checklist that tells you that if you go through and you're honest and you check it off, you're going to know where you're at. And then hopefully this course will take you to that next level.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you added that beginner material, Kenna, because there's I think there's a lot of players that they think they know all the basics, but really some of those there's often are. I had, believe it or not, a player in a cash game I was in tell me that he could see my cards, that he could see, and I am very careful about the way I hold my cards, but it did make me think, like, okay, maybe I need to, just remember that, there are people in this game that are trying to kind of peek over your, shoulder, sort of, and so
just having good, solid fundamentals. I don't know any pro that doesn't have good, solid fundamentals, and a lot of people who play online, they're not used to that, or they don't know what a grid matrix is or things like that. So I wanted to for those people, I wanted to reach to them and say, hey, you're not alone. I'm with you, man. I learned this stuff from 1995 before they had computers. So I was able to go through that gradient, and not everybody can do that, especially us older players. I'm one of the older ones now, get lost in all that stuff. And I think, though, the other coaches are great. I'm just a different style. That's all. And
well, let me pull. We've got a bunch of questions now in the chat.
I love it. See, that's what I love. I love connecting to people and talking to them rather than talking at the screen. So I would love to have any questions and find out where the players are at.
All right, I'm going to pull up this. Oh, that's a little bit. Hold on just a second. I'm going to try to. Whoops. All right. I was going to put one of the questions in the window here so everyone can see it. Give me 1 second here. Okay. See if. So I just put a question up there. Paul has asked, Kenna, how would you define bad player? Are there different types of bad players? Do you play differently against different kinds of bad players?
Yeah, well, bad is kind of a generalized statement, right? To be quite honest, when somebody tells me they're playing against a bad player, it's usually them. Yeah, but that's my inside joke. But it's usually somebody who's not playing a hand or doing what you want them to do. I mean, this is, quite simply, that's really true. A player your opponent shouldn't be trying to do what you want them to do, or they shouldn't just be playing standard. You should actually try and stay ahead of the curve. I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, to the question about bad players. Technically speaking, a bad player is someone who is making unprofitable decisions in the game. But maybe they're not in it for profit. Maybe they're playing for entertainment, And so if you're playing for entertainment, your purpose always supersedes action. So if you're playing to meet people, success is how many people you meet. If you're playing for fun, success is how much fun you had. But if you're playing for profit, which a lot of players are, especially if you're watching this and you want to play for championships, success is about profit and winning championships. How many championships have you won? That's what success is. So bad is anything that deviates from that and takes you out of that. Technically speaking, a bad player would be calling with unprofitable odds or drawing with unprofitable odds, playing hands that are not profitable long term. Let's say king jack offsuit in early position. When you see that, players have a really wide hand range. So marks of bad players is they play too many hands and they tend to play too passively, meaning they tend to check and call a lot or try to just see a flop rather than take the lead. Leaders lead. Champions aren't afraid to take the lead in a hand, whether you have 7-4 suited or 2 aces. having that lead in the hand is so important, taking the betting lead. So bad players, they play too many hands. They don't take the lead. They call be just a math player or a numbers player. You can be a field player. What I coach players is to be both. Know the numbers and know the math, but also play with instinct and heart. You can do both. You don't have to be one or the other. A balanced player is a very dangerous player because they're in tune with the trends of the game. So, and they think at higher levels. Bad players just tend to be very simple, which is fine. Simple isn't bad, but when you're taking or playing in spots that are unprofitable long term, we call that a bad player.
Just a second, Kenna. It seems like can everyone still hear us? Okay, or getting some people in the chat window that said the video was freezing and breaking up.
I can't see that chat window. Should I be able to see that too?
Yeah, the chat window should be on your right there. Oh, maybe you have to.
I see. I have to look at the thing.
Yeah, here. No audio or video. Press. Okay, Gary says press reconnect. It's okay now. Hopefully it is.
Oh, here we go.
Okay,
now I see the chat. Hey, Ken. Hey, Bert. Don.
Okay.
Wes.
There we go.
Kathy.
Okay.
Awesome. Richard. Great to have you guys here. Great to have you with me. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
What did you guys? I have a question for them while we're waiting for the next question.
Okay.
What did you, Jason Puzaki? Great to have you, bud. So, what do you think of now? The course I spent a year developing, this webinar here, just the last week or so put together that Steve asked me to for this product. Do you have any questions on the webinar itself or any comments? Because I'd love your feedback, critical or otherwise. And that's a question.
Let's see. I tell you what, they can put that in the chat there. And while we're waiting, we've got a bunch of questions here. So let me
let's fire away.
The next one to you. So the next question is from Lyle, and he says, how long can you afford to be patient when you're card dead before finding a spot to make something happen?
This is a great question. How long can you be patient? That varies to the individual. The answer is in the question. But usually I would look at the trend. If you continually find yourself card dependent, where you're relying on the cards to save you and you're only at average stack and you keep dwindling, you're going to want to step out and develop other skills like 3-betting light, squeezing, floating. Do you guys know these skills? I don't know, the level of players that are here, but these are techniques that we can use that don't require a hand. And so one of the things I would do is not wait, but learn to play spots and cards. Whenever you get at a table and you see players who are just entering pots, right, and they're looking to play, they're looking to get involved into the flow of the game, not just their cards. It's kind of like, you're going into war or into combat, right? So I wouldn't wait too long. I would suit up and get after it. Combat, remember, as Fassetti would say to me, was a willingness to deliver an unwanted effect on another and the ability to receive an unwanted effect, whether that unwanted effect is losing a hand, losing chips, going out of a tournament. Your ability to take a punch is one of the things that makes us strong as players. You can't be afraid to lose. You can't play not to lose. You got to play to win. And you can't just rely on the cards to do that for you. You got to do it yourself. And trust those other elements, whether it's your instincts, your intuition, your read of the opponent, your chip stack, your position, so many factors. Okay, guys?
Okay. All right, next question. Well, real quick question here from Kevin. He says, may I use my free half hour to tell Kenna some bad beat stories?
Hey, listen, if you want to use your half hour to complain, Absolutely, I'll listen. But I would encourage you that I'm taking it. I know he's joking, but I'm taking it on a serious note. There's a lot of people that like to complain about things that bother them in the game. Uh, Let me just take that catapult off that joke and for a serious moment. To take loss as something that you can learn from, even if you think you played the hand technically perfect or correct, I promise you, in every loss, there's gold at the end of it if you just have the courage to look for it. You have to have courage and you have to want to see what it is you're supposed to learn. So many people use loss as a vehicle to gain sympathy or to complain or to say, wow, woe is me. It can be a vehicle for new understanding. And that's what I want to say about that.
Okay.
So I would rather you come into session with me, a private session, and say, so I lost this or this was my loss, but let me tell you what I learned in this experience. And I'd say, great. Tell me more. And then we get to the real work of what's going on.
Okay. On a serious note about that question, someone did ask later on in the chat here. You said you'd give 10 people a free half hour. They asked, "What if you're number 11? Are you gonna give it to any more than 10 if more than 10 people buy the course tonight?"
Wow.
He's thinking about it. Would you go to 15 maybe if what if
Why,
15?
does somebody want to know if they're number 11? I don't know. You're in control of that, Steve.
That's true. I guess I could look and I could see.
I don't know.
I will advocate. Who asked that?
I don't know that we should tell them.
Okay.
It's part of the game is the mystery, right? Well, I'll put it this way: we're not going to leave you out in the cold. We'll definitely find something to give you of additional value, because I know to get value, which I'm asking for you to give exchange tonight, not just for this course, but for the webinar that you just watched. And this is a lesson that Fast Eddie gave me on exchange, which is the value that's coming in. You want to match that in giving value on back. And in poker, so many players don't give good exchange. Meaning they'll take a guy's chips, or the guy will walk off and they'll say, "Hey, nice." They won't even say, "Nice playing with you. Thank you for playing. I appreciate it." Or, "Hey, have a good day." Or even give acknowledgement. The very thing that we could give that doesn't cost anything except a little bit of effort is to acknowledge another person for putting forth their effort in the game. I tend to talk a lot at the table. I'm in flow and because that's one of the things I like to give of myself and give exchange. And it comes back. We live in a cause and effect universe, which means that which you put out tends to come back. So I encourage you to give exchange, not only for my course, but here in your questions, your insightful questions, asking questions, being a student of the game is giving exchange. So that's just another lesson, and maybe one I'll give in some of my privates if I feel a person has an exchange problem. Difficult, meaning if you're out exchanging, that means you limit your ability to receive because you're always giving, but you don't feel like you have enough coming back. And if you're in exchanging, you have all this value coming in, but you're not putting anything out, you've limited your ability to give. And how much is that going to affect your poker game? It affects whether you play a hand or not, because your mentality and how you think about the game then also contributes to what you do, right? So that's one of the things mentally when I coach people is I'm trying to coach the whole person, not just how to play a hand, although we talk about that too.
Okay, another question here. This one is from Carl. Carl says, I play tournaments in straight stages. I play different at the start and different again.
Yeah.
The level after that. The level after when you cannot buy back in anymore. Then at the final table, I play another game. I've made the final table a lot using that strategy. What do you think? So he's talking about he plays tournaments and stages and kind of has a different strategy at each stage.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to play tournaments?
I think it's fantastic. Absolutely. Chips have more value at the end of a tournament than they do at the beginning. Yet a lot of players get it reversed, meaning they play really tight at the beginning because they have all these blinds, but the chips don't mean as much. And then they get down and they're in the money, right? The money stage, and they just start pushing their chips in and giving them away. It's a weird phenomenon. I like that. You should have different strategies and techniques at each stage of the tournament. And there's 3 major stages that I coach with 3 sub-phases in each stage, so 9 altogether. And the fact that you adapt your play to the changing conditions of the game, fantastic. And you're already making final tables. So for you, the secret to a championship is then frequency. You can only win it if you're in it, right? So if you're making final tables and you're there, it's about frequency. This isn't football where you play 16 games and you go, 14-2, and then you win 3 playoff games, you win the championship, you're a champion. Poker is more like baseball. We got to play 100 tournaments before getting to the World Series and playing those championship events. And there's a lot of ups and downs. My goal is to win 1 major championship a year. And I've been playing about 20 years. I got about 20 championships, and that's really what it is. The best in the world only cash 20% of the time and win 1 out of 100. So there's a secret that a lot of people secret. It's so basic that sometimes we forget the most simple things. That you got to be in it to win it. You got to play a high frequency of tournaments if you want to be a champion.
Okay, Jack.
You are at the beach house. I hear the ocean in the background.
Yep, I am right on the beach. All right, let's see. Crescent Beach, to be exact.
Gotcha. Wow, beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let me give it a second here. The next question is from Jack. He says, "How can I increase my aggressiveness when my natural tendency is to just wait for cards?"
Oh, what a great question. See, that's a real champion. When you know yourself and you know what your limitations are, but then you have the courage to push through the fear of what you think you can't do to overcome it. And I'm gonna answer this along with Mark Malera's question here. What is the benefit of winning a championship? Is to win that championship, oftentimes you have to overcome that. Yet so many people say, well, that's who I am. That's me. I don't get up and I don't speak in front of crowds. That's your consideration, my friend. That you're a passive player is your consideration. And it may be true. That's how you play. But you can change that because you're the one that made it. But that's your comfort zone. That's your safety. So to win a championship for you is to move beyond that. And aggression, I think people look at it as a negative connotation. Aggression just simply means the amount of motion you put into something, right? Like think about it in a washer and dryer. When it's on aggression, it's got more motion, right? So in poker, that means like betting and raising. So it probably doesn't feel comfortable doing that, taking the lead. And the best way to do that is to train on APT and force yourself to track your 3-bet frequency, your aggression factor, and train in it in software first, but then you've got to take it out into the real world, which is another whole chasm to cross. But you can do it. You got to have faith in yourself. And that's the win within the game that takes you on to championships.
All right.
That's the benefit of a championship. Mark asked, what's the benefit of a championship? It's overcoming your personal barriers or obstacles to defeat all those things, not just the other players that stand in the way, but it's really your own inhibitions and inabilities, overcoming those towards the championships. That's the benefit.
Okay. All right. Lots more positive comments in the chat here. Chris.
Oh, great.
Chris
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris wanted to know so I just bought the course, how do I sign up for the free APT membership you mentioned? Chris, just fill out go to the site, fill out the contact form on there, send something to me.
After this is over, I'd love them to stay here and participate with us. But after it's over, go to where?
Yeah, just go to Advanced Poker Training, fill out the contact form, and just send me a message there and say, hey, Steve, I bought the course during the webinar, and I'll set you up with a free trial right away. Let's see here. Ralph says, thank you, Kenna. I really appreciate your time. Sheila says, Kenna is a great life coach and poker coach. He's approved my game 100%. I'm sure Kenna appreciates hearing that, Sheila.
Sheila, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I got a surprise, too, in about 2 minutes I'm going to share with everybody if they hang on. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right, next question here is from Gregory. He says, Kenna, if you could go back to when you first started playing poker, what advice would you give yourself in order to get better faster? Wow.
If I go back to when?
Go back to when you first started playing poker. What advice would you give Kenna James 20 years ago that would help you?
What a great question. Holy cow, these guys. Sharp, man. Be careful of who you hang around with.
Wow. Yeah.
There's a lot of great people in this game, but the game is also filled with challenges of others that are playing the game off the felt as well as on the felt, that somebody like me who's from Michigan, who's quite naive or quite green, so to speak, and eager to be included, coming out to the big cities can be easily taken advantage of. That's why I call this From Chump to Champ series. A chump is someone who's easily deceived and taken advantage of. So that's very passionate and dear to my heart, that anybody who has a deficiency in the game or that can be taken advantage of, to help them overcome that with whatever I can. So that's the advice I'd say. Don't be a chump, Kenna. Don't be so naive and gullible. Be careful who you hang around with and what you're doing.
How do you avoid for someone who comes to Las Vegas there, maybe there are people out there thinking about becoming a professional poker player, moving to Vegas. Mm-hmm. How do you avoid all the temptations out there? We hear about poker players who they're great players, they make all this money playing poker, and then they lose it playing blackjack.
You're asking the wrong guy, because I tell the first 3 years in Vegas, and I tell them that's the toughest, because it'll probably break you, but if you can get through it and survive it, you'll be okay. But it broke me. It definitely did. I fell victim to many of the temptations that were out here. But rather than be sorrowful about it, I learned from it. Valuable lessons come through loss and sometimes even stupidity, if you can learn from it. And surround yourself with good people. I was fortunate enough to find Ed Walters, Fast Eddie, to take me under his wing and guide me onto a better path. So how do you overcome that temptation? We all have our demons. We all have our skeletons in the closet. I don't think anybody is immune, not a poker pro especially, so easily to lend itself to gambling and other vices. That's winning championships off the felt. And that's why I deal with both life and poker, because a lot of it translates onto the felt. So I bring life lessons into poker and poker into life lessons to help people better and give them a more fulfilling experience all around.
Yeah. Here's a similar kind of question from Ralph. Ralph wants to know, what's your biggest piece of advice that you would give on how to stay focused? A lot of these, you play these tournaments, you're playing for 12 hours straight. I hear some people say, drink a lot of coffee, but then other people say, well, no, you drink coffee, then 4 hours later you kind of crash. You don't want to.
Great question.
stay at your best for say
Right.
you've got a 10-hour tournament you're going to play. You're going to play 12 levels in a day. You're going to be there for 12 hours. How do you stay focused the whole day?
What a great question. The answer's in the question: by focusing your mind. The mind tends to wander if you don't give it something active to do. Especially if you're, if you're a poker player, you're mentally active. If there's a lull or a dull moment, boom, there you're looking. Especially in Vegas, right? Whether it's a sports thing or a TV or a cocktail waitress or a server or whatever you look at. I don't know. It's so many distractions. So you actually have to train your mind to do it where you direct it. It will go where you direct it. And in poker, we direct our mind by staying focused in the particulars of a hand. You've got to get into the details, my friend. You will find God in the details, whether that's focusing on a single player or how they're betting. A good one to put your focus on is the bet sizing in relationship to the pot. So even though you're not in the hand, focus on the sizing of the bets that people are making and stay in that moment. Staying in the moment, staying in the zone is so important. And if you can do that, time just seems to go like this. Boom, you're like, wow, it's dinner break already, because you're so enveloped in that zone. And I'd like to say that I always am in it, but I'm not. And any pro tells you they're not. But you see Ivy, he's in it consistently, all these top pros. But we slip in and out. So shift your focus to what is going on in the moment, trying to stay present. One of the keys is to play in present time. Play poker in present time, which brings me to another quote. It takes great skill to do what you're doing while you're doing it. Remember that. Hopefully you've got a pen and paper. Write that one down. It's a great one. It takes great skill to do what you're doing while you're doing it. Come on over here for a second. You mind? Hey, I want to interrupt for 1 second because I told you I'm in Las Vegas. I'm downstairs in a championship tournament right now. We're on dinner break, but I wanted to bring in a student of mine. He was kind enough to let me to come up into his room so I could do this webinar. And this is Joey. Say hi to Joey.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
So it's a bunch of APTers, and you've been working with me about what?
A little bit over a year.
A little over a year.
Yeah.
Cool. And how's it going?
So far, so good. I got 233,000 in chips.
Oh man,
So,
nice one.
I got knocked. I had 175,000, got knocked down to 50,000, and just grinded it up.
Nice. And you're doing well in the cash games back in Chicago too, right?
Yeah, it's cash games. I've been doing very well at. I've made over 17 grand so far just in cash games alone. So just grinding in cash games. Started at 1-2. That's what Kenna wanted me to do, and then bumped up myself to 2-5.
Fantastic, man. Good work. So thank you for letting me use the room, by the way.
Oh, you're good.
So real proud of Joey's come so far, and wasn't even, just playing poker as, an enthusiast. And now he's making money traveling to Vegas and playing in championship events. So just wanted to bring him in and recognize him. And I have so many, I keep about a stable of 10, only 10 clients. I call it my inner circle of people that I work with. So they're real special to me. So wanted to share that moment.
And if people want to get private coaching, they can go to kennajames.com, right? That's your
Absolutely,
website.
absolutely, yeah. And
Yeah.
just send me a contact and set up an interview.
Great. So we got a hand question here. I'm trying to, let's see if I can make sense of.
Wes, the course is over 4 hours long. Wes is the course.
Yes, yeah, the course is over 4 hours long with those 11 documents that go with it as well. Okay, I have 35 big blinds on the button with Ace King offsuit. Big blind is 2K. A player with 20 big blinds opens from 3 behind.
2.5. Yep.
I'll be honest, I'm having a little trouble making sense of this, Kenna, but I'm reading
Okay.
just reading that first line there. If you were to ask,
Let me see if I can figure it out. I have 35 big blinds on the button with ace king off. Big blind is 2,000, so you're probably playing 1, 2, and 2. Player with 20 big blinds opens from 3 behind, meaning 3 before, so probably like late middle position to 2.5x. It's folded to me. I 3-bet to 15,400. 15.4K. Okay, so the reason it's a little difficult is he's mixing in chip amounts with number of blinds.
I see.
He comes over the top all in. I call. Did I make the right move? Absolutely. I mean, if you've got 35 bigs, you've got ace king. It's a premium hand. You're going, and plus it looks like with 15 bigs. Let's see, you've got 7, 8, almost 8 bigs in. And you've got 27 behind. It's just, I mean, to call a 4-bet with ace king, I respect the decision, but I just don't think you're deep enough to get away in that particular spot with just a single player. Now, if it was raised 3-bet or 3-bet and 4-bet before it even gets to you, sometimes I throw ace king away. I open fold ace king when it's so obvious. But in today's game, it's really like kamikaze poker. I mean, I just seen somebody, Joey was just telling me about a hand where a guy raised, Joey made it 25,000. The guy made it 25,000. Joey had ace king and shoved for 125,000, put the guy all in. He had 175 at the time. And the guy called him with king queen. I mean, it's just that with that kind of play out there today, it's just too big of a hand, I think, to fold with 35 bigs.
Yeah, I don't think you could ever really be making a mistake. I kind of agree with what you said. Maybe if there was, if there was a raise and a 3-bet and a 4-bet before you, but really, I mean,
it's really close. Yeah.
I usually tell people, if you get all your money in with ace king pre-flop, even anytime you have less than, and you may not agree with this exactly, anytime you have less than 100 big blinds, the way how aggressively people play pre-flop these days, if you get your money in with ace king pre-flop, I mean, let's face it, half the combinations of pocket aces are gone.
Right.
The combinations of pocket kings are gone, so you've only got 3 combos of aces, 3 combos of kings left in the deck. Any pair, any pair queens or less, you're a coin flip. Even against pocket kings, you're 70-30. You have a 30% chance of winning against pocket kings. So the only hand, of course, you're totally crushed against is pocket aces. So really, I think ace king. I know this is your webinar, not mine, but I think
no, I appreciate your insight. I wouldn't go up to 100. Maybe I'd say it gets more around 60. Another factor that maybe you don't consider though is the quality of the table that you're on. The more you can make up and make a good tight fold because your table's so good, and look for a better spot. If you had closer to 50 or 60 big blinds, maybe get away with it. All right, what else we got? Is there another question?
All right, here we go. Let's see here. Gary wants to know, Gary says, I used to watch you on Channel 4 UK TV about 15 years ago, you and Helmuth, but where's your hat?
Yeah. I used to wear the cowboy hat and the cowboy boots. It got pretty heavy, I got to tell you, for a kid from Chicago. So, I took off the hat. I wear it from time to time because I still have that cowboy way about me. Sometimes when I do a seminar, I'll wear it. But, those were the days, man, battling it out with Helmuth, especially over across the pond in London and a lot of the TV shows I did over there. Thanks for watching, man.
Okay, Wes wants to know, had a question about the course. He wanted to know.
I answered it. Yeah, it's over 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. Yep.
He was asking about does the course go over bet sizes and donk betting? I do remember you talking about donk betting in the course because there is kind of a trend.
What do you mean more than go over it? Like, does it define it? Yes, I think it does.
I believe so.
Betting into the pre-flop razor. right? And then I have a chart on bet sizing, like a PDF file that talks about the different bet sizes. So, does this course go over bet size to donk betting?
Yeah, I think he's just wondering whether these things are covered in the course.
Yes. As a matter of fact, in the advanced material, I talk about the strategy, the counter strategy to the new donk bet that's coming out all the time now. It used to be we always check to the razor, right? So there's this new technique that's coming out where people are donk betting with a higher frequency, betting into the pre-flop razor. That's one technique. Another technique that they're doing is they're calling it a downsize. It used to be called a pro bet, but now the pre-flop razor is betting, 25% a pot quite frequently in these small ball sizes, and then they hammer it on the turn. So how are we going to counteract that? So it's so important in poker to stay ahead of the curve and realize what the trends are, and then learn to, I really want to share this, especially for those people that stayed on. Thank you. Appreciate you sticking with us. So I want to give you some good information here. So important to stay ahead of the curve. See the trends of the game. For an example, Stu Unger in the 90s, he came up in a time where the philosophy was no set, no bet. Can you imagine how tight that poker game was? No set, no bet. And that was in the 90s. And Stu Unger, one of poker's greats, realized that these players were playing too tight, and so he could exploit it. And so he was one of the leaders of being a very, very overly aggressive and leveraging that advantage of that knowledge that they weren't playing optimum. And so he was ahead of the curve, and he wins championships, right? He was willing to step out when everybody else was doing the same thing. Champions are leaders of change. And one of the things I'm working on right now, quite frankly, in my game today, I'm working on is changing opening raise sizes. Everybody's making it 2.2 or 2.5, but yet, if you'll notice the trend, everybody defends super wide from the blinds. So if you have people defending super wide from the blinds and you have position and you have a quality hand, even if it's, let's say, king, queen, ace 10, ace jack, ace 9 suited, you're well ahead of the blinds defense raise. Why not? And they're going to call you anyway. Why not get more equity and more value from your pre-flop hand? I'll tell you why. Because people are afraid to deviate from the standard because they're going to get singled out like you don't know what you're doing. If you have purpose and intent behind what you're doing, that's what makes the champion. So I am always figuring out what the trend is and then counter-strategizing to counteract that. I want to get my equity and my value. If they want to call me light from the blinds, I'll increase and inflate the pot in position, forcing my opponents to play out of position with their 9-7 or 9-8 offsuit, and get a lot of value that way.
All right. I'll tell you what. We'll take one more question here, and then maybe we should
wrap it up.
Okay,
good. And I'll finish with 1 to 10 song again. I'll in signing off my son's group. I'd love it. That song is so inspirational to me, so I'll play it for you guys.
All right, here you go. Here's a good one, and I'm going to say you're not allowed to name yourself here. It says, this is from Kevin. He says, Kenna, in your opinion, who's the greatest tournament player of all time?
Wow. Man, what a great question. I've played, before I give you my answer, because I'm contemplating it as well, so I'm stalling a little bit. They just came out with a list of the 50 greatest poker players of all time. And I was looking through the list and how honored I've been to play with almost all of them consistently for a long period of time. What a great honor it's been. And each one brings so many different elements. It's really hard to pick one. it's really hard to deny what Daniel Negreanu has done through his career. I started playing with Daniel Negreanu. We were playing 40-80 back in LA. Limit Hold'em in those days. The Grinder. He actually was so tight in the beginning. That's how he got his nickname. One of my great victories was we got heads up at the LA Poker Classic. It was $250,000 for first, and I, was able to overcome and win that title. And he finished second. That was a great victory. But what a great player he is. But I'm going to have to go. Have to, believe it or not, probably go with the crowd favorite, Daniel Negreanu.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly if you talk about who's the most important player, we say the greatest tournament player, that could be interpreted just as far as the greatest player of the game itself, or who's the greatest as far as who's important to the poker
game.
world.
So important to our game, too. He's a great ambassador over the years. I could tell you, we'll do another one of these maybe down the line where I'll tell a lot of poker stories and playing with these great players. So many fun times, from playing golf with Phil Hellmuth over across the pond in England. We had this weird bet, and it's raining, and we're betting on which, it was one of those tee boxes where we weren't sure which hole was the next hole, which direction to go to. It was, anyway, lots of fun.
I'm sure if Phil is watching this, if Phil is watching the webinar, he's totally offended that you didn't instantly name him as the greatest tournament player of all time.
Yeah, he probably is. He is great. You can't deny how many bracelets he's won and what he's done as well. So many great players, and some that you may not even know or aren't even mentioned half the time.
Yeah.
But in tying this up, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone and who's stuck here and participated. I hope I exchanged with you and I gave you some value tonight for your time and your investment and what you shared with us. And Sheila, Bobby Wages, all my players out there that also signed on here to watch tonight. Linda Swears just won a trophy, by the way. Heather and Paul, I know she's a friend of yours, a longtime student of mine. She won her way into the World Series of Poker Championship. She's coming to town tomorrow, and
Great.
She won a title yesterday. I've been blessed, and I've been blessed to find you, Steve, and APT. Thank you to you, your brother Alan, Heather, and Paul, everybody on your team. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kenna. We enjoy working with you too. And everyone, save that link there up in just one last time, that link to the course. We will have a replay of this webinar. As soon as I can get that put together, I'm going to send that out in a email blast to everyone, so you'll be able to access the replay if you missed any of it. And that's all I got to say.
Awesome. I'm going to play the tune, and then I'll sign it off. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. See you next time.